So a few days ago, I put out my Oscar predictions mid-year report all about the films released in the first 6 months of 2023 I believe will be nominated at the 96th Academy Awards in early 2024. I talked about Past Lives, which I believe will be nominated for Best Picture, Best Actress for Greta Lee, and Best Original Screenplay. I just saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and it blew me away. What an incredible piece of animation filmmaking. Just stunning work, and I do believe that will win Best Animated Feature. Could even have a shot at getting into the Best Picture lineup. I talked about Air, Asteroid City, Elemental, but there really weren't too many titles to go over. It's not like we had 10 to 15 films that came out since like March that are clearly going to get into the Oscars. It looks like it just might be 4 or 5 movies that just show up somewhere on Oscar nominations morning. And then the rest of the summer doesn't look much better. You look at the lineup at the very end of July and most of August before we get to the fall festivals. There's not really anything coming out that looks like it's going to be a major Oscar contender, but there are of course 2 giant movies coming very soon that will play a big role at the Oscars, and it's been making all of us so crazy the last few months knowing they come out the very same day. Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan, and Barbie, directed by Greta Gerwig. Box office tracking shows that Barbie is going to win the weekend with as much as like $110 million, whereas Oppenheimer looks like it might open with closer to 35 to 45 million. I think in the long scope of things, both movies are going to do very well financially, but what about the Oscars? I know it can be hard without having seen the films yet, but based on the trailers, based on the careers of these 2 directors, based on everything we know about the Oscars, like what do I think these 2 films are going to be nominated for at the 96th Academy Awards? Here they are, way in advance, my Oscar predictions for Oppenheimer and Barbie. Let's do this. Let's begin with Oppenheimer, which I think is going to do very well at next year's Oscars. I think anything less than 7 or 8 nominations will be a disappointment, will be a surprise. Christopher Nolan has of course done very well at the Oscars, going all the way back to Memento, which got nominations for Best Original Screenplay and Best Film Editing. Insomnia did not get anything, but then Batman Begins got Best Cinematography. The Prestige got in for Art Direction and Cinematography. The Dark Knight was an interesting case because that was intended to get a Best Picture nomination, and everybody was shocked when that nomination instead went to The Reader. But if Christopher Nolan had dipped his toes into the Oscar waters with his first few features, The Dark Knight really set him on a course for great things. That film won Best Supporting Actor for Heath Ledger, of course, along with sound editing. It was also nominated for art direction, cinematography, film editing, makeup, sound mixing, and visual effects. So that film did really well, even though it didn't get into Best Picture or Best Director. I know it was a Batman movie, but that film was such a phenomenon. I'm still surprised to this day that it didn't get that Best Picture nomination. I wasn't necessarily expecting Christopher Nolan to show up in Director as well, but Best Picture I think would have been really awesome. So it's funny, it's like as the years go on, we're looking for that Best Director nomination for Christopher Nolan. Which film is going to get it? A lot of people thought Inception might be the one. It did get into Best Picture. It was the first Christopher Nolan movie to get a Best Picture nomination, and it won Best Cinematography, Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects. Nolan did get a nomination for his original screenplay, but the film did not get into Best Director. I think that would have been a very well-deserved Best Director nomination for Nolan. Something people forget that always blows my mind is that The Dark Knight Rises from 2012 did not get a single Oscar nomination. I think it's weird that The Dark Knight gets 8 nominations and then The Dark Knight Rises is just completely ignored. I do think The Dark Knight Rises is the least of the Nolan Batman trilogy, but 0 nominations? How did that happen? Interstellar underperformed, I would say, only winning Best Visual Effects and then being nominated for Best Production Design, Best Score, Best Sound Editing, and Best Sound Mixing. That could have gotten into Best Picture. It could have gotten a screenplay nomination. It's a rare Nolan film to open at the end of the year. That one came out in November, but I guess it was just out there enough that the Academy rejected it for those top categories like picture and director. What did Christopher Nolan have to do to get a Best Director Oscar nomination? He needed to make an Oscar-friendly movie. An historical drama, a true life story, a war film. I mean, if there was ever a movie that was going to get him into Best Director, it was Dunkirk from 2017. That is a fantastic movie, and I knew walking out of that screening, I said, okay, I think he's finally getting into director. Like, I think it's happening. Dunkirk was one of those films that did well during award season of early 2018, but it never could win in any of the top categories. Like, you kept seeing Nolan show up time and time again, but he never took a televised award. At the Oscars, the film, like The Dark Knight, got 8 nominations, but this time it got into the top 2 categories, Best Picture and Best Director for Christopher Nolan. Yes, he had to make a prestige war movie to get into Best Director, but there you go. Dunkirk won Best Film Editing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Sound Mixing. It also got nominations for cinematography, production design, and score. And then finally we get to Tenet from 2020, which definitely underperformed, only got 2 Oscar nominations, and 1 for Best Visual Effects. I'm not the biggest fan of that film. I couldn't quite make sense of it, but I do think the visual effects win is really cool. Tenet was a very heady genre movie that went back to films like Interstellar, films that can make it into the technical categories at the Oscars, but typically don't show up in like Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. Oppenheimer looks much more like an Oscar-friendly movie in the vein of Dunkirk. It's an historical drama. It's about a real person. It's got an amazing cast. It looks flawless from the costumes, from the cinematography, to the production design. I don't know if it can win in any of the top categories next year, but Oppenheimer feels like a movie that's going to do very well at the 96 Academy Awards. I just watched the recent trailer. It looks stunning. It looks like something that Nolan has been working toward for many years. And Cillian Murphy, an actor who I adore, who has never been Oscar nominated, looks like he might be doing the performance of his career. He looks sensational in this movie. Can Emily Blunt get her first Oscar nomination? I don't know if she would be actress or supporting actress, probably supporting actress, but that's definitely a possibility, I would say. However, it's kind of crazy to think when you look back on all the Oscar nominations Christopher Nolan's films have received, only one of his actors has gotten in, Heath Ledger, of course, who won after he had passed away. I mean, Dunkirk was such a massive ensemble without really a singular main character that it makes sense that that film did not get into the acting categories. But Oppenheimer clearly has a lead character, so I'm feeling good about Cillian Murphy's chances. I mean, outside of Best Actor just being crazy competitive, and Cillian Murphy ultimately showing up in like 6th or 7th or 8th place, he doesn't quite make it in. That could happen. I think Oppenheimer will clean up in the technical categories. I think it'll probably win at least 2 or 3 Oscars. I mean, we do have Dune Part 2 coming in November. Dune Part 1 did very well at the Oscars, winning a ton of technical prizes, so it's possible that the sequel could beat out Oppenheimer for things like production design, sound, visual effects. I might change my mind in the months to come, but as of this moment, sight unseen, I of course have not watched Oppenheimer yet, I am predicting that this film will receive 10 Oscar nominations. The categories I am predicting for Oppenheimer are Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Cillian Murphy, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, Best Production Design, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects. Now, this does seem like a pretty big prediction for a movie coming out in July, but when you look back at how well many of Christopher Nolan's films have done throughout the years, and Oppenheimer just feels like a movie that the Academy is going to embrace. Yes, there will be lots and lots of Oscar movies coming out at the very end of the year. Oppenheimer might not do as well as I'm predicting. Maybe it only shows up in like 5 or 6 or 7 categories. But I do think it's going to do well. I do think it gets into Best Picture. Christopher Nolan might not make it into Director, but I'm feeling pretty good about his chances right now. Looking at this list, I don't really know yet what Oppenheimer can win, but I do think no matter what happens at the 96 Academy Awards, you're going to see this movie pop up all over the place. Alright, and now let's talk about Greta Gerwig's Barbie. How excited are you for Barbie? I know I am. This movie has been at the top of my radar for many months. Thursday, July 20th is going to be an amazing day. I'm seeing both Barbie and Oppenheimer. My local theater has a 3 o'clock in the afternoon screening of Barbie, which I'm going to, and then I'm going to go have dinner with my brother and see Oppenheimer in IMAX. It's going to be an epic day at the movies, one we really haven't had this year. This is going to be something special. It makes me very happy when I read that Barbie is intended to do very well at the box office. I was a little nervous early in the year. I was like, is this movie going to underperform? But I think we all sighed in relief when we got that first trailer. This movie looks amazing, and it looks like Greta Gerwig really has put her stamp on this movie. I adore her first 2 features. Both of them made my top 10 list. Lady Bird was my favorite film of 2017, and that's saying a lot because there were some great films in 2017, and her adaptation of Little Women is just extraordinary. Better yet, both of her films did very well at the Oscars. Lady Bird got 5 Oscar nominations: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Actress for Saoirse Ronan, and Best Supporting Actress for Laurie Metcalf. I would have given the movie pretty much all 5 of those. I think it came closest to winning Original Screenplay. If Jordan Peele had not been in that category for Get Out, I do think Gerwig wins there. And then Little Women got 6 Oscar nominations. It won Best Costume Design, and it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actress for Saoirse Ronan, Best Supporting Actress for Florence Pugh, and Best Original Score. So the Academy clearly likes Greta Gerwig. I don't think that they're going to ignore Barbie. So much time and care and craft has gone into Barbie, and so I think it definitely gets into the 96 Academy Awards for sure. Does it get nominated for Best Director, Best Picture, Best Actress for Margot Robbie? No, I don't think that happens. I honestly don't even know if there's a version of Barbie the movie that could get a Best Picture nomination. I really don't. I think what we're getting with Gerwig's film is probably going to be one of the very best movies that we ever could have asked for in the world of Barbie as a movie, but I just don't see it happening in the top categories. I mean, it is called Barbie, right? So it's like, I just don't see a lot of Academy members checking it off their ballot. I could see a lot of people being like, yeah, that was fun last summer. We're not going to nominate it for Best Picture or Best Actress or something like that. The movie looks like it has enough of a humorous bent to it that I just don't see it being in the top categories, although I do think it gets into at least 3 technical categories. I love that we'll be able to say Academy Award nominee Barbie because it's happening. The movie's going to get in somewhere. The question is, how well is the movie going to do overall? Will it just get into 1 or 2 categories? Will it overperform and get into like 5 or 6? It's up for debate. We'll see how the movie turns out. I'm excited to see it. I mean, honestly, I'm more excited for Barbie than I am for Oppenheimer, which I don't know if you would have asked me a year ago if I would have said that, but I love Christopher Nolan. Oppenheimer looks amazing, but yeah, I'm more excited for Barbie, honestly. Oppenheimer is going to do much better at the Oscars than Barbie is, but Barbie is showing up somewhere. I am predicting that Barbie gets into 4 categories at the 96 Academy Awards: Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Original Song, and Best Production Design. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below, what Oscar categories do you think Oppenheimer and Barbie will get into in early 2024? Are there any categories you think I left off the list? We'll see you next time.